Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining for our session today. Before we get started, I have just a couple of housekeeping items for you. First of all attendees will receive a recording of this session via email, so just keep an eye out in your inbox for that email with the replay link. And the second thing is we will have time for questions at the end. There is a questions panel on the GoToWebinar console. So as we're going through this presentation, if you have a question about something that was covered, feel free to just type it into the questions panel on the console, and we will take those at the end after the main presentation. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark D'Alessio to kick us off.
Thank you, Susie. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mark D'Alessio, the Partnership Director for Enverus Business Automation. As some of you may know, in Enverus Business Automation, we digitally connect oil and gas operators with their service companies to help their accounting teams run more efficiently and cost effectively. Our open invoice solution digitally transforms the invoice process to reduce costs by anywhere between 80 and 85% and reduce the processing time by 10 to 15 days. I'm extremely excited today because the webinar is going to be presented by our strategic partner, the Eag family of businesses, and that's Eag Services and Eag 1Source. Eag is widely known and very highly respected in the oil and gas space, and a partner that we've worked with very closely over the years. And I'm happy to be joined today by Lindsey Mersman, the Vice President of Business Development at Eag. Welcome, Lindsey. How are you today?
I'm good, Mark. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the invitation to join you. We're excited to be here and talk about how we leverage your tools.
Oh, no worries, no worries. With that in mind, and Lindsey, maybe you could just kick things off and tell the audience a little bit about what the Eag businesses do on both the services and 1Source side, and then provide, you could tell us how during these really extraordinary, challenging times, how you're providing value to your clients.
Yeah, great. I'm happy to do that. So everyone, thank you for joining today. I want to thank you all for your time and let you know, Mark teed up two different companies. And most of the time today, we're going to focus on Eag 1Source and how we're helping our clients in the market crush costs and streamline their processes through technology and our outsource offering. But first, I have to take a step back and start by, giving a little background on how we started with Eag Services, 1Source's sister company. So Eag Services is a consulting firm that's deeply rooted in the oil and gas industry. Since our founding 16 plus years ago, our consulting teams focused exclusively on helping upstream and midstream organizations make their business more efficient and effective on the back office side of things. So accounting, land, production, all of those areas. We've done that through leveraging our industry expertise and executing projects such as software evaluation, system implementation, business process improvement, and technical engagement such as data conversions, reporting and analytics, and master data management, which is all somewhat of the stuff that's shown on the slide in front of you. And about 4 years ago, when our industry changed dramatically, not for the first time, but one of the times in recent history, Eag Services became heavily involved in merger and acquisition projects. In a merger and acquisition project, all elements of the project I talked about above are usually come into play. In that time frame of the last 4 years, we've helped numerous startup oil and gas companies go from zero to operational in a very, very short time frame. And in those projects, although the core ERP solution might be different, I can very confidently say that in almost every one of them, the Enverus business automation products have been leveraged, such as Open Invoice or Energy Link, or you name it. And so, we're very well versed in utilizing all those projects and making them a part of day-to-day operations for oil and gas companies. Each time Eag started one of those M&A scenarios, it seemed like both back office and IT infrastructure were created from scratch, right? Tight TSA time frame, and you have to do absolutely everything very, very quickly. And so our clients started, asking us and driving these questions as to why don't you guys offer an all-encompassing solution? And what we heard from them time and time again was, you guys know the optimal systems, you're selecting them, you're up to date with them, you know what they are, you understand the data and the processes. So why not take that one step further and provide an outsourcing option that covers the whole thing? Furthermore, they also told us they weren't necessarily happy with the outsourcing options that were available. And so at the demand of our clients in 2017, Eag 1Source was launched. Eag 1Source is a full-service outsourcing organization, and we were really designed in collaboration and with our clients in mind. So, collaboration ultimately led to the vision that you see on your screen in front of you. Like I said, we're deeply rooted in the oil and gas industry, and our goal was to take the administrative piece of back office. When I say back office, I mean your accounting, land, production, and your IT. Take that off the table so that our clients could focus on managing their business and creating value for investors and debt holders. The way we were able to do this is by leveraging our technology and optimal processes to ultimately drive down costs, create scalability and flexibility across our business model. We've poured everything that we have learned over the last 16 years of consulting into the vision of 1Source to ensure our clients are getting the best set of technology, IT, processes, and overall outsourcing experience available to the oil and gas market. And as we go through this webinar today, you'll learn more and more how Open Invoice is at the core of what we do. So what is it that we do? To break it down just a little bit further, we're really looking at providing business process outsourcing. So when I say accounting, I mean your JIB, your revenue, your AP processing, your owner relations, your division order, your production accounting, land administration, all of those things that have to take place in an oil and gas company that have to be there. We also provide IT outsourcing, and IT outsourcing is really soup to nuts for us. It includes field connectivity, SCADA, measurement, application management, integration, desktop support. Our professionals remove the need of hiring extra IT staff or any IT staff at all, depending on the company's model. And then advisory services just goes back to the heart of our consulting organization, really providing guidance from an IT standpoint for how these companies grow and leverage technology within their organization. Just to kind of reiterate, our strength is really offering a single umbrella across all of those areas. We really are able to add value, and our clients have seen value when our resources are able to connect the field activities with the back office activities, which are traditionally separated by team structure and physical distance. Our teams are in constant communication, which means that our IT team is making sure SCADA and production accounting are connected. Our production team is working with the field teams to confirm the allocation results are accurate. Our AP team is leveraging Open Invoice to communicate with the operations team and improve invoices. And all of those activities ultimately flow into overall company revenue. Again, allowing our clients to just focus on the end result, drilling wells, optimizing production, returning investment to investors, while we handle absolutely everything else. And how do we do that? I've mentioned quite a bit about technology. We call it the 1Source Power Pack. So through our experience in consulting, we've really looked at all the software out there and compiled a group of what we think is the best practice and allows us to really streamline what we do. So through our ecosystem, we leverage vendors and partnerships like our Enverus and Open Invoice partnership to provide scalability, flexibility, automation, integration to our clients. So because of this power pack, if you will, we're able to help our customers bring on 5 wells or thousands of wells in a very short amount of time because we've already thought about the end result in mind. We have integrated the systems, the processes, the data, and are really streamlining the overall operations or back office operations of an oil and gas operator. And when I say the end result in mind, we leverage, we go to the next slide. The end result in mind, our goal ultimately is to provide insight at your fingertips, giving our clients the tools to dig into the data and really see what's going on in their company without having to learn all the different software and get into, the nuts and bolts of how these systems work. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and transition to Deanna Bradley, EAG's VP of Business Process Excellence. Deanna's going to take a deeper dive into how 1Source utilizes specifically Open Invoice and how that has allowed us to drive down costs and streamline processes for our outsourced clients. Just to give a little background on Deanna, she's been working in the oil and gas industry for 15 plus years and has spent a large portion of her career working with oil and gas operators. We were beyond thrilled when Deanna joined 1Source as employee number 1 back in 2017. Her passion for finding ways to streamline processes, introduce automation, and leverage the cool tools was very refreshing to us, considering she's an accountant at heart. With that being said, I will turn it over to Deanna.
Great, thanks, Lindsey. As Lindsey introduced, I'm a bit of a recovering accountant, but I am a huge process nerd. And my passion really is in finding ways to make accounting less of a grind and allow for the people who work on my team to be able to focus on analyzing the data rather than moving numbers from one spreadsheet to another. It's really engaging the team to add value to the data that they process and the information that they have. So I love finding tools that like Enverus offers. Their whole suite of tools is used pretty significantly by us and our clients. So we love that they, how much efficiency they bring to our teams and our work. So that being said, there we go. Okay, so when we first started 1Source back in 2017, we were searching for a technology stack that we were going to rely on, and we had some pretty specific needs and requirements. The requirements were that the systems were readily available, easy to deploy and maintain, offered simple integrations, all while accommodating for internal controls. So selecting Open Invoice to be part of that technology stack was an easy conclusion, as you'll hear how it helps my team operate and work efficiently every day as we proceed through this webcast. So how does Open Invoice do this? The main goal, and I think it's probably similar to all of our organizations, is that it's simple. And that we really wanted to make sure that our clients had, a single place to go to that was easy to understand, and that their invoices and their associated workflows were all in one place. And it was critical that it, in the end, saved time, saved money, and improved efficiencies. And taking it even one step further, it has to do all that without sacrificing the quality of the data, right? So those were key items for us. And so what did we find when we looked at Open Invoice, and how does Open Invoice fit 1Source's needs to efficiently operate for all of our clients' needs? Well, here's some key items that I believe differentiate Open Invoice from its competitors. First of all, Open Invoice is a web application. So all the functionality that you'll see today or that you will use within the system is all delivered via the web. So there's no additional applications that have to be installed or maintained. Anyone can log in from anywhere using any device. And as you know, in this day and age, and especially with what we're going through with this pandemic, being able to work remotely and still be efficient is key. And so we've relied significantly on the services that Open Invoice provides. So again, our clients can easily monitor and approve their invoices. So another key metric that we look at when we were selecting our software is that the vendors have significant uptime. And what I mean by that is that the systems have minimal interruptions and non-evasive upgrades. Open Invoice performs their maintenance during non-work hours, and it is extremely rare that there is an unplanned outage. Again, our clients expect to be able to process their invoices whenever, wherever, and that the solutions just quote unquote just work, right? If it's not easy, then it's not, we're not going to get that buy-in. So diving in a little bit more, one of the key competitive advantages that Open Invoice has is their vendor network. The ability for the vendors to submit their invoices directly through the Open Invoice portal is the first critical efficiency that you're going to gain on day one. So I said just a little bit earlier in my introduction, what I really focus on within my team is reducing touches. Reducing touches that don't add value is especially key. So in a traditional AP environment, if your AP staff is going into an inbox, copying an invoice, taking that copy, placing it somewhere else so that it can just then start its coding process, then at the end of that process, has any value been added to that invoice? In my opinion, the answer is no. It's just been moved from one place to another. What does add value is when your vendors log in to Open Invoice and place their invoice within your workflow. That is added value. It's transferred from them to us. And then the first time that your staff is touching that invoice is to add value to it by coding it and or routing it for approval. So that also means that direct submission into these systems means that nobody's chasing around the invoices. They're not lost in people's emails. They're not sitting on someone's desk. Or I remember when I started my career, the inter-office mail back in the day. So I was chasing, trying to figure out where that went. Then that's only where it begins. That's not where it stops with Open Invoice. The next step is once that vendor's invoice is within the Open Invoice platform, they have access to the information that they traditionally would only be available by interacting with your AP staff. So when the vendors use the Open Invoice portal, they have access to monitor the status of their invoice, where it is within the approval process, and whether or not it's been paid. Plus, that payment data, once it's available within your ERP, is then recorded with the date, and payment details are pushed back into Open Invoice. So what that means, again, less interaction, less time that your staff is having to spend on non-value added work by answering those vendor phone calls. In addition to that, your vendors are happy because they don't have to wait for a phone call back or for someone to get back in touch with them on the status of their invoice. The next key item is automation and integration. These systems just need to work together. Open Invoice has built a great network of partners that can help manage the integrations. Within those integrations, what we're looking for is that your master data that's held within your ERP is replicated in your Open Invoice master data tables. So that means things like your ASEs, your cost centers, and your vendors are all staying in sync between the two systems without manual intervention. Another key component of integration is that once an invoice is in an approved state within the Open Invoice platform, it gets pushed into your ERP for vouchering. And then again, once that invoice has been paid within your ERP, that payment data is sent back to Open Invoice, again, keeping that nice 360 view of the entire process. The next item, and you'll continue hearing me say this, is easy. Quick and easy approvals. This is really our main goal from an outsourcing perspective, is that our clients find the applications that we deliver to them easy and intuitive to use. So very simple for these teams to interface with our teams, approve their invoices, and move on with their day-to-day work. All right. So I'm just going to dive into a little bit more about why we chose Open Invoice. So getting more organized. As we said, tracking I can't say it enough, tracking the hard copy invoices, mailing, scanning, all of that is time wasted that is made so much more easy and efficient by using the Open Invoice platform. So as well here, the whole workflow is easy to follow, easy to keep in touch with. Disputed invoices don't get lost in the mix. That's traditionally in AP. Another area where we found that we would struggle is that if everything was fine, an invoice might proceed on through the AP process just fine. But if there was an issue, that invoice would get routed through someone's email to say, can you take a look at this? I don't think it's accurate. Or that person would then email it back to the vendor saying, I don't agree. And next thing you know, you've lost complete visibility to where that invoice is, what the issue is, and why we haven't been paid. And then you're wasting valuable time, again, tracking down where that invoice is, who has it, and what the situation is. So you can also you can have your accuracy. I think we've all experienced when an invoice gets posted into the general ledger, and that's when we find out that it's got the wrong coding, inaccurate coding, it's to the wrong AFE, and now you have to go and make corrections. The downstream impact from bad coding adds hours to a process within the month and just wastes, again, valuable time. So Open Invoice has those coding validations that you can build in up front so that that data never makes it over to your general ledger without being validated first, saving critical time. And all this is done, it's all great. Efficiencies are fantastic until they're ineffective. So key is that to have efficiencies balanced with effectiveness. And within Open Invoice, you are going to gain better controls. The Open Invoice platform has been designed to allow us to really easily accommodate our clients' delegations of authority. So as you know, auditors love to check our delegations of authorities. They like to say, how do you know this was an accurate invoice? How do you know that the person who approves it had the right delegate authorities to approve it? How can you prove all this, et cetera, et cetera? I love when we can point our auditors to Open Invoice or print out the history or show the history of the invoice and give that to the auditors. Again, a huge and significant time savings to allow us to do this control. So a couple of more areas that I wanted to touch on that have allowed us to become more efficient that are due to the offering within Open Invoice. Another item is something called smart coding. So we find that we have a significant amount of repetitive invoices from probably 80 to 90% of our invoices come from, only 10% of the vendors. Things like pumpers and chemicals and those invoices that come monthly, almost well by well in some cases. So what you can do is you can identify those vendors that do always have that same standard coding, and you can apply something called smart coding. What smart coding does is it says, okay, every time this invoice comes in, it always gets charged to the same LOE account, so that when it makes it to your AP staff, it comes with that your general ledger coding already embedded, and so you're just left with setting up and inserting maybe just the cost center or the AFE. Significant time savings right there, critical for us. Really applies to hundreds and hundreds of the invoices that we process every month. Require maybe 10 seconds of our AP staff's time when we can use smart coding. In addition to that, for those vendors who your operations teams and you all have some really good relationships with, there's also the ability to allow your suppliers to actually code the invoices when they submit them into your into Open Invoice. Sometimes these vendors are working really closely with the operations teams. They're very familiar with what wells or cost centers they're working on and what type of activities they're doing. And so they can be entrusted to vendor by vendor, you can turn on the ability to allow those vendors to submit the coding up front. So again, this really allows your AP staff just to make sure that the amounts are right, that do some general checks, but they're not spending their time coding the invoices themselves. That's already been done out in the field. So after all this, what is it that our clients see? How does it actually work when you're in the system itself? So I want to take you through some of the screenshots for those of you who aren't familiar with Open Invoice. This is the dashboard. This is the homepage where everyone, when you log in, they land here. So they can see the status of where the invoices are within the system. They can see the tasks assigned to them, very simple. They can watch our metrics, right? We like to have transparency. We want our clients to know that we are handling their information, that their invoices are being coded and moved through the system in a timely manner. And then there's just some completed reports that they can view if those were some standard reporting. Then what happens? This is where we really get into the meat of the application. This is where really our clients spend a good amount of their time, is by selecting those invoices that are ready to approve. You go in here, they can review the header information, they can compare that to ensure that, to look at the coding, make sure that they agree that this is the right AFE, the right GL code. They can also open the attachment, right? Of course, you want to see the invoice to validate that the data has all been coded properly and that you agree with the work that our team or your AP staff has done. And then this is where, I continue to say you always have the visibility to where the invoice is, where it's been, its history, and what's going on with it. You can see everything that's happened to this invoice is listed here within the history section. You can really see who's seen it, who's approved it, and where its journey has taken it. Okay? So then you can also just see some more data and where that the payments are going to be sent to and who it's going to be remitted and the remittance amount. So really just everything that is key within an invoice that needs to be reviewed. So this is really where I say, again, easy, easy. If our clients like what they see, they hit the thumbs up button at the bottom, right? As soon as that thumbs up is hit, the invoice is approved. It is then moves into the workflow to be sent over to the ERP, and it will be vouchered. If they don't like it, you hit thumbs down. That then starts the dispute process, where the invoice will either be sent back to the AP department for correction and coding or some more research, or it will be sent to the vendor to make their changes and edits. And once those changes are made, it goes back into the approval workflow. So simple, simple. So in the end, we're asking our clients to either hit the thumbs down or the thumbs up button. Really couldn't be easier. As we go through that. So I know that I touched on this earlier, but I do want to spend some more time on this because I can't really accentuate enough how much the fact that Open Invoice has built such a extensive network of vendors and suppliers. This network grows daily. This number is probably higher. I quote 50,000, but I think Mark would probably revise that up for sure. So because there's already 50,000 vendors within the network, when we onboard clients, we typically see a match rate of 70 to 80%. I just finished onboarding a new client for outsourcing. when we did their vendor match, we came up to 92%, which was pretty incredible considering how many vendors they had. So when the vendor is on the network, that means on day one, as soon as you turn on your Open Invoice modules and you're ready to go live, on day one, the vendors start submitting their invoices through the Open Invoice portal. And you're going to see an instant drop in those touches, right? Instantly, the amount of work your AP staff has to do drops. You're no longer scanning. You're not looking in your emails. You're not opening up the snail mail. Instantly, if these vendors are on network, they know what to do. They know how to interact with the portal. It's a simple communications process. So as soon as you enable your vendors within your application and your environment, they get notified. Hey, I'm a vendor. I'm a supplier. I'm now using the Open Invoice platform. You could start submitting instantly to my organization, and those vendors know what that means, and so they will start submitting. We get it's always kind of fun. As soon as we turn on the systems, I always like to see how many invoices come in on day one, and it's always at least a handful. So the vendors like working with Open Invoice. They enjoy it for all the reasons we just said, where they have that transparency and that clarity. Right? Start transacting immediately. Over 50,000 out there and growing. Again, this creates that better relationship because vendors aren't waiting. They aren't frustrated. They know what's going on. And this makes communicating with your vendors easy. There is options to send emails to vendors individually. You can send a mass update, like let's say you have a situation that you need to broadcast, and you need to let all your vendors know, or let's say you're moving locations. Well, this is a great format to use to say, we've moved, update our mailing address, et cetera, et cetera. So very simple. Okay. So because we do so many Open Invoice implementations, I don't know what we're up to this year already, but it feels, I think we're doing at least once a month, we're doing some onboarding. So it's key that we are able to easily deploy this solution. So Open Invoice itself, honestly, you saw it, thumbs up, thumbs down. It almost requires no training. We still do hold training, but it's about a half an hour, and our approvers are on their merry way. For the coders, we typically find that the training takes about an hour to introduce the system, how to code an invoice, and then from then on, it's just a couple of little follow-up questions, and the AP staff, we find, is well on their way within a short amount of time. And if those formal trainings don't answer all the questions, Open Invoice has a great resource of online training materials that are available within the program, it's within the application itself. So there's videos on how to code, there's videos on how to dispute, lots of good information that they've made available. And so we do find that we have a very high adoption rate and that our clients are happy to utilize Open Invoice and find it very, very simple. We already talked about the interfaces to the ERPs, that it's web-based and it allows you to log in from anywhere. Talked about those couple of different items that make processing invoices so easy and so quick. What this really does for our outsourcing is it allows me to have 1 or 2 AP staff cover multiple clients. Because we can process so many invoices so quickly, it makes us super efficient. And so I can have, one staff cover multiple clients, which makes it great for us. And then you can also quickly find, reconcile, get the information that you need. So you can use Open Invoice to search for invoices, search by vendor, lots of online access for our clients to be able to answer the questions they need to around the invoicing. All right, so I just said that we talked about reporting. One other point that I wanted to make that I should have made on this slide right here is one last thing about the maintenance of it. So we all know those systems out there that require a lot of care and maintenance. It seems like you're always having to touch it and maintain it. Open Invoice, once configured, very rarely do we have to go back and touch the configuration. Really, the only maintenance that is required once you're up and running is updating user securities, adding new users. That's always going to happen. Anytime you make changes to your chart of accounts, which should be fairly infrequently. And then really the only other maintenance we do is enhancing the workflows within the system. So making improvements to the way that we're utilizing the system. On that note, for workflows, something I've seen in my past in some other AP entities where I've worked is that people will design their workflows and their processes to handle the exceptions. So typically we find that about 10% of invoices don't fit into a standard workflow where you've got these exceptions where, well, if it fits these 10 different items, then we want it to be routed to this gentleman, and if it fits these 10, we want it to go to this lady. But those only come once a month. Well, people will try to design these very intricate workflows to handle that small 10%. We really try to stay disciplined and use the 80-20 rule. We build our workflows to handle the majority of the invoices, and that leaves plenty of time, for those one-offs to be handled by our more advanced accounting staff, our AP staff. So we do try to keep our workflows pretty short, pretty simple and straightforward. So that does cut down on the amount of maintenance, and you don't end up in a tangled web of workflows. So that's just a side note. That's everyone's preferences, but that's ours. We try to stay disciplined and keep them easy. One other item on ease of maintenance is that there is built-in user password resets. So again, nobody's calling your IT staff, no one's calling your administrator to say, I forgot my password, I can't log in. If our clients are working in the middle of the night, forget their password, it's a simple request to do a password reset. And that, again, is a critical must-have, is that the systems are always available, people can self-serve. That makes it easy. Now we go into reporting. So within the reporting, I do a lot of metric tracking. Again, we are a service-based organization with our outsourcing, and so we want to make sure we are hitting not only our internal expectations, but also with our clients. So once you're in Open Invoice and you're getting all this data, Open Invoice gives you a great reporting tool to get your data back out. You can slice and dice your data, export it to Excel to do further analysis. You can isolate the data that you're trying to get to, and then you can also save and schedule reports to be delivered. So if you have metrics that, processing metrics that you are delivering to your management team or that you're monitoring internally, you can have those just sent to you on a regular basis. So a few key items that I watch to help improve efficiencies is monitoring the invoice count by vendor. And what I do with those is if I see a high invoice count for a vendor who's not on the network, then I know that signals me to go ahead and initiate the on-ramping request with that vendor. I reach out to them and say, can you please consider becoming part of the Open Invoice network so that we can both operate more efficiently. We also watch the invoice counts coming in from vendors, even who are on the network. Sometimes we have those vendors who send us one invoice per well per day when they go out to do some maintenance. You can end up with hundreds of invoices from one vendor. So we will, in some of those cases, we reach out to the operations teams and say, would you consider working with this vendor to consolidate the number of invoices into a handful, maybe one a week, one a day. We see that we're getting a lot of these. It's wasting time for the vendor. It's a wasting time for our team touching it. And then ultimately, it's wasting your time as the operations team because you guys are the ones who have to finally approve this. So if you're approving 200 invoices from the same vendor every month, that has added up over the whole process flow. So if you can get that vendor to consolidate, you're going to see instant time savings. We also use those metrics to identify which vendors we should put on smart coding. I mentioned earlier, if you have repetitive invoices going to the same charge code on a regular basis, you can enable those vendors for smart coding. So those are just a handful of ways that you can use these metrics, use the reporting to increase your efficiencies even further. And then one last thing, and I want to wrap up by specifically talking about Open Invoice, is that it's scalable. So with our offerings, we support businesses, oil and gas companies that are both small and large. So we can have some instances where we have a client who's maybe only processing 50 invoices a month, right? They're in startup mode, they're just starting to drill, we've got a low invoice count, up to some of our clients, you know, we're into 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 invoices a month, right? And our clients are typically in growth mode. They're either drilling or they're doing active acquisitions. And so we have to be able to scale with those clients really quickly. And what Open Invoice has allowed us to do with their easy configurations, their import templates, the ease in which you can add vendors, it has allowed us to really scale easily and quickly and adapt to our clients' growth quickly, which is critical for us. So here's some contact information that will also be on the slide deck that I'm going to go ahead and jump over. So I have a few more items that I wanted to share with you. Just wanted to give you some metrics. So I think I've talked a lot about how you can become more efficient, but what are some numbers that we've seen? This first box really only applies to clients who are who outsource with 1Source. But we find that because we have a standard chart of accounts and we have a standard methodology for onboarding our outsourced clients, we are able to do a really rapid implementation of Open Invoice. And so where that becomes critical is when we have clients who have done acquisitions or work that they need to be on board and start receiving invoices very quickly, we can have an implementation done within a week. Now, again, that's not typical with brand new companies to Open Invoice. It does take longer because there's a lot of decisions to be made and some configurations. But within our outsourcing, we can very quickly stand up a client and have them ready to accept Open Invoice, invoices through Open Invoice very quickly. Another item is we talked about receiving those invoices. The fact that you're skipping the mail, you're skipping the email, you're skipping the scanning, all of those things, we estimate that saves anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes per invoice. You can extrapolate that over your invoice count to come up with your time savings. We talked about the smart coding. The smart coding really allows, we try to trend between 2 and 3 minutes per invoice on the processing time. So smart coding cuts that way down. You're within 30 seconds to a minute just to do some validations and maybe attach a cost center to an invoice. Systematic routing. We talked about this. You're not having to interoffice, you're not having to email, you're not having to track down. Again, we think that saves about 5 minutes per invoice by not having to figure out who to send the invoice to or where it should go, who has the right delegation of authority, etc. Dispute tracking. We talked about how that really just perpetuates through the organization when there is an issue with an invoice. Being able to track that and dispute it through the application itself has been invaluable. Saves, we believe, about 5 to 10 minutes per invoice that has to be disputed. And then keep it, the collaboration and the status updates for the vendors. We really feel like that saves hours and hours and hours a month. That's really a little bit harder to track, only because there's so many phone calls back and forth, emails, but we know that there is a lot of time that goes into maintaining those questions and those relationships with the vendors. Automating that and working all that through Open Invoice, it easily eliminates hours per month. So in the end, all of these enhancements and all these efficiencies allow us to have one of our FTEs easily be able to process about 3,000 invoices per month on average. And that is also a metric that may be unique to our organization. We do, because we are outsourcers and we do want to make sure that we are providing the very best value to our clients, we do hire very experienced AP staff who know the intricacies of oil and gas accounting and understand those nuances within the invoices. So you may see a little bit less processing on average within your organizations, potentially, but that's about what we see and that's about what we're able to run at, which is critical for us to be able to make sure we're hitting our internal deadlines and our clients. So then at the end, I just wanted to give you a bit of a view of outside of just the invoices from our outsourcing perspective. So obviously we do a lot of processing, do a lot of invoices, but at the end of the day, those invoices all are utilized as a data set, right? So with our clients, we have a whole reporting package that we deliver out of Power BI, and this is just one snippet of that reporting. This is an LOS statement that we deliver through Power BI to our clients. So they can pull this up at any time, see what's going on with their well, by time period. And what we've been able to do by utilizing some interfaces between our ERP, Open Invoice, and our document management tool, we end up having a 360 view of that invoice that allows us to take this LOS statement, and down here are the details that make up these rows of one of these totals here. What our clients can do is see that within this account, within LOE and chemicals, that they paid Baker Petrolite $233. If they want to know some more details on that, they can click this link here, and that invokes the actual document image to come up right there so that they can see, okay, the 233 is a valid cost. I understand that. They might look at the 118 and say, this doesn't make any sense, and they can go and talk to the PMs or the operations team and get some more information. So again, we really try to focus on transparency, availability of data, and make it easy for our clients to answer their day-to-day operations questions. So just wanted to kind of wrap that up to show you that all of the processing that we do in AP, we bring it all together at the end and try to provide all that data succinctly so that our clients can make business decisions off of real information, and that real information is available at their fingertips. So with that, I can turn it back over to Mark to see if there were any questions that came in that people wanted to, in anything that you saw today.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a couple via the email. So first one was, how difficult was it to configure Open Invoice, then have it working, and I assume that means integrating with your accounting system?
Well, those are two good questions. So the first item is to configure when you work with Open Invoice directly and you're investing in that product with Open Invoice. They have a great implementation team that will guide you through the configuration and the implementation. The folks who maintain it on my side have found it very intuitive and very easy to understand the configurations that we worked with initially with the Open Invoice team. So I think in that sense, it's simple once you've made some critical decisions up front, and the team will guide you through that. The second question is with your ERP, and in that sense, it depends. Depends on which ERP. Some integrations have more bells and whistles and are easier to integrate than others. So that one's a little harder because it really depends on your ERP. But again, the team at Open Invoice can absolutely help you guide you through that. They have a great set of partners. I would say, I think I touched on with our implementations here at 1Source, we found it, now that we've done it a couple of times, very simple to configure and to maintain.
Awesome. Thank you, Deanna. One more here is, during the recent lockdown, was Eag 1Source able to run their clients' accounting completely remotely via Open Invoice and your other solution? And then how smooth was that?
Thank you for that question. Because that's a great one. We are really proud to say that we've had no disruption to our clients' deadlines or to the performance and availability of their data. I mentioned at the beginning that we had some really key requirements when we picked our technology stack. And the first one is that the systems are available, easily available, and can be delivered over the web, because we know that's just a requirement. So all of our key and critical systems are delivered through the web. Power BI, our ERPs are web-based. Open Invoice, as you can see, is web-based. And then we also have a document management tool that we use to share all the documents, which is M-Files, and that is also web-based. So we are really happy to say that we did not add stress to our clients' already stressful times during this COVID. So we have really just been able to adapt as if we were working in the office.
That's great, and especially in these times, absolutely. And then the final question, make sure I get it right. Is there a specific size client that makes the most sense for working with 1Source, i.e. too small or too large?
I really like all these questions. They're good ones. That's a really good one as well, because we do get that sometimes. Are we too small? And we know that there's a need, especially for the smaller entities. Some of these management teams, when you're starting up, it's a daunting task to take on all the responsibilities of picking accounting systems, picking the technology stack, making sure you have EnergyLink and you know how to use it, and that you can distribute revenue and you can run your JIB processes. It very quickly becomes a very large animal. Even if you're just a smaller company of 10 wells, all of those processes are still extremely important and need to be handled by experienced professionals. So no, there is no client that's too small. We work with management teams who have no assets yet, who are out in the acquisition space trying to find that next right buy. So we help those management teams who have no assets, like no wells at all, and then we support companies up to with hundreds and hundreds of, over 1,000 wells. So the answer really is we service the small, we service those without assets, all the way up to those large asset sizes, and everyone in between. And that's what's great about using someone like 1Source, is that there's this idea of fractional usage. So if you're a smaller company, you may only be able to afford a revenue accountant, or you can only afford a financial accountant. You can't hire a JIB, a revenue, a finance, AP, all those different skill sets that you need. But when you use 1Source, you get a piece of each of my team, each of the team that we have. You get an amazing revenue resource. You're going to get an experienced JIB manager. You're going to get, like I said, we really do only hire the most experienced AP team. So we bring all those kind of like the best little collection of people to you, but you don't have to have them 40 hours a week. You may only need, a revenue person for 8 hours in a whole month. And so we can deliver that to you as part of our package.
That's great. Thank you.
Hopefully that answers that question. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. So looks like we don't have any more questions. So we'll go ahead and wrap up the session for the day, but just want to thank everybody again for attending, and we will send you the replay link to this session in your email. So look for that tomorrow in your inbox. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, we hope that you guys stay safe and stay well out there. Thanks for attending. Bye.